Okay, so this, what I'll be doing is I'll be recording and then stopping, recording and stopping so that we can have set little videos. I'm not very good at editing. So instead of making one big video, we'll have a bunch of videos, and they'll all be in one link for you though. I'll put them together on a private YouTube link so that you guys can have one big playlist. Okay, so let me just talk about your test here real quick, Anthony, so that you know what to be prepared for. So this is examfx.com. It doesn't matter if you're using them or not, but this is just showing us what the breakdown looks like. And Mary, your breakdown will look similar as well, because it's both Prometric. So you have general insurance, which is 5% of your exam. And so if you already have silver, or actually even my YouTube has the general insurance audio. So you can just listen to that. That'll get you that 5% there. Life Basics is what we're about to do right now at the beginning of this session. And that is 10% of your exam. So you can see here how you have a bunch of chapters, a bunch of different concepts, and they all come at a different percent. By focusing on the ones that are the highest, it makes it easier for you to secure a pass and not waste your time. Like for instance, qualified plans is only 3%. You don't even need to spend time on qualified plans. I didn't even make, because qualified plans and retirement plans and taxes are actually so small for most state exams, I didn't even schedule it as part of our boot camp. The schedule for today is the most tested topics, and that's in alignment with what I'm talking about: life basics, types of life policies, and annuities. And that is what is on our schedule. And I think even provisions today, that's what's on our schedule today. So I always focus on the most tested topics, the biggest things that you will see on your exam. So it's very awesome that you're in this boot camp, because we're going to be covering the biggest chapters for you. I think we're covering all of this today for you, these 4 right here. Are we doing life provision? I think we are. Yeah, we're doing life provisions. So we're doing life provisions at the end of the afternoon today. So we are covering 10, 20, 31, 38% of your exam today is going to be covered. And then since you're doing both life and health as well, now you have a couple of chapters, C3, 5, 3, 4. These ones aren't super important. What's good in this one is health provisions, and it's only 4%. But the good news is that health provisions and life provisions actually overlap. And so things like entire contract, the grace period, I don't have a lot on my mind right now, but there are time limit on certain defenses, things like that. They overlap a lot, like physical exam and autopsy. It's all the same. So what you learn for life provisions is going to help you with health insurance provisions. So those two will overlap. Then your next business is going to be medical plans. We're talking about that tomorrow. Group, we're talking about that tomorrow. And then insurance for senior citizens, we'll be talking about that tomorrow. So we're going to be hitting the most tested topics for you, and you want to focus on them the most. But you do need to, you got to get like all of those points in those chapters. You are spread a little thin in that you kind of got to know a little bit of everything. You're going to see here when we talk about Florida, she's got it much easier than you. But that is your breakdown for organ, life, and health. Do you have any questions for me, Anthony, about your exam and what to focus on? And you can unmute or put it in the chat. All good. Okay, perfect. All right, so then let's go ahead and take a look at Florida. And Florida and North Carolina will be similar as well. F. Okay, got to remember my ABCs. And you're doing just life, Shana, I'm sorry, life and health. I think you're doing just life. No, you're doing both.
Just life. No, just life.
Okay. All right. So your breakdown, as you can see, is a lot easier, and you don't have nearly as many chapters. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have all that information. You still have all that information that he has to learn. It's just that they group it all together in a inside of these chapters. Like types of life policies is going to include annuities, where his separated life insurance from annuities, because they are technically 2 different things. yours will put annuities in the types of life policies chapter. But you have two big chapters. You have Florida state law and you have life provisions. Now, I am not covering state law, but you have the silver package, the class series, and that has state law videos in it. So you're going to want to watch that to know what numbers are important. And then of course you have platinum too, so you can just ask me questions. But that's going to be a big chapter for you, is the Florida state law. Now, life provisions is your next biggest at 21%, and we'll be covering that this afternoon. So that's the chapter you want to pay extra attention to, because for you, it's the second biggest, and it's going to be easier to learn life provisions than it is common to all lines. Now, what's super cool about this life provisions chapter is that it's going to double dip down here. So the Florida state statutes pertinent to life insurance is basically going to be telling you the provisions again. When you go to read this chapter in whatever course you have, you'll feel like, I feel like I read this before. You did. It's just that Florida wants to emphasize the provisions and their specific numbers for the provisions. So that's awesome that you kind of get to double dip there. You probably don't even need to like study this chapter. If you got the provisions down, you'll probably be able to get enough points from this chapter to be able to get, you don't have to get 100%, right? You need 70% to pass. In fact, I outlined, it was so funny. I haven't made the post yet, but I plan to. A woman posted about the property and casualty Florida exam, and the breakdown looks kind of similar, but it has a couple more state law chapters in it. And she's like, oh my gosh, we got to know all the things. And I broke down exactly how my gold course would get her a 71%. And that's what you need to pass. She ended up passing with a 70. Like, that's all you need. Like, I don't focus on all the things. I focus on what it is you're going to need to secure a pass. So you won't need to get all of these points. If knowing the provisions chapter here really well to get as many of the 21% as you can secures you half of the points here, that's enough. You don't need to get 100%, right? Then you have completing the app, which is what we're going to be doing today. So it's called Life Basics on the Arizona side and the Oregon side. For you, it's called completing the application, but it's going to be the same stuff. So that's an easy place to get a lot of points. It's very simple what we're going to be covering this morning, and I'm going to be telling it to you in the form of a story, which will help make a lot more sense. Then you've got types of life, and that's 14%, and we'll be covering that today. And we'll be focusing on the things that you need to know for that. And then with taxes, you can kind of ignore this chapter. It can be a little bit complicated. If you already have some good knowledge on like 401ks and things like that, then if you have like a regular job, you've learned a little bit about 401ks. Usually that's enough knowledge to help you out, but you don't need to get super focused on the tax chapter. It's only 9%. You can pass the whole exam without knowing it. Like, you can get 30% wrong. So 9%, if you were to get every question here wrong, it's okay. This chapter can be a little complex to understand and learn and make it make sense. It's not even one of the topics I'm going to be covering because it's usually so small for most people. And like we saw, qualified plans in Oregon, that's the same chapter here. It's only 3% for him. It's only 9% for you. It's not super valuable for people, especially because it requires a lot of memorization, a lot of numbers, and if this, then that kind of things. And so that's not super important, and it can waste a lot of, brain space. Again, I focus on the 70%, not knowing it all, because you don't need to know it all. So that is the breakdown for you for the Florida exam. Do you have any questions for that one?
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. So then we'll do Arizona real quick and then North Carolina. Well, actually, let me do North Carolina first because it's very similar. I guess I should have done Arizona and Oregon back to back, but my brain works the way it does. Where there we go. Okay. Rhonda, are you doing life and health, or are you going to focus on just life or just health? Wait, in silver, do you touch? Yes. So, Anthony, to answer your question, I have the state regulations class, or insurance regulation is what it's titled. It is going to tell you what numbers are important. So it won't tell you what the numbers are because every state is different. But I will say you need to know how many CE hours you need, which is continuing education. Every state has different requirements for that. So I won't give you the exact number, but I will tell you which number you should memorize from whatever pre-licensing course you have. Remember, I'm not a replacement for a pre-licensing course. I complement them. I make them make sense. So everyone should have a pre-licensing course like ExamFX or Excel or 80 Banker or Kaplan or whatever you have. And then that will give you the specific numbers. And then my video will tell you which numbers to focus in on and which ones to find. Oh, yes, right, Rhonda. So both, but they are separate. That's correct. Okay, so we'll talk about just health or life today, since we'll do health tomorrow. So similar breakdown like you saw for Florida, you've got 25% state law. That's going to be the same stuff that's in property casualty. So it does say pertinent to life. There will be a little bit of the provisions in there. So same rules apply. When they say pertinent to life, it's going to be the provisions that they want you to know. They really, really want you to know those provisions and the North Carolina state specific numbers for those provisions. Like if you've already been studying, you may know like the free look period, which is a 10-day free look period, where if the customer buys the policy and they decide they want to return it, they can do that for a full refund within those 10 days. Some states have different numbers. It might be 15 days or 30 days or whatever. So every state can kind of change their numbers on it. And this chapter will just be focused specifically on North Carolina numbers. But this will also be common to all lines. How many CE hours do you need? How long is your license good for, et cetera, et cetera. Now, types of individual life insurance. I believe completing the app is what we're going to be talking about today. And you'll see that in other life topics. They don't have like an introduction chapter for that. But what we're talking about today will help you out. But I'm pretty sure it's coming from other life topics. I'll have to double check. North Carolina is a little wonky, as you know, and they switch up things a little bit. But your three biggest are types of life, which we're doing this afternoon, and then the provisions also this afternoon, and then state law, which you already know about, and you've got the state regulations down. And as you learn the provisions, that will also help that as well. Do you have any questions on that, Rhonda? I have not studied life. Okay, perfect. So this will be a great introduction class for you. Whether you have studied or have not studied, what you're going to learn today is helpful. And I've been telling people to watch my videos first. That if you have a pre-licensing course and you have my videos, do my videos first, then do your pre-licensing. It'll make a lot more sense, or do them kind of side by side. Okay. All right. And then let's take a quick look at Arizona. And you're going to be doing both life and health together, right? Oh, see, look at yours. It's already looking like the big old breakdown. Okay. So similar to the Oregon, your big chapters are going to be life basics, life insurance policies, the provisions, and those are the biggest. Now, general insurance, you already know that as a PNC agent, you already know general insurance, actual cash value, replacement value, liabilities, stuff like that. You know all of that stuff, so you don't even have to really study that. But you could listen to my YouTube that goes over the generalization, the general memorization audio or conversational audio. I have two different ones. And we'll be covering the life basics right now, which is 12%. I think that's actually your biggest chapter. So this morning is your biggest chapter we're going to be covering. Then we'll be doing life policies and then the provisions. Again, you can skip out on taxes. They're not super important. You have another section of taxes down here, which is only 3%. This one actually involves a lot of math. It's not important. You don't need to know it very much. But I will actually be covering that when I talk about disability, because disability and taxes kind of overlap. You are a little spread thin when it comes to the health insurance. So you see here, this is where we start with health insurance, and there's not really a lot of big chapters. You've got disability and insurance for senior citizens are your two biggest. And then you've got a bunch of like little ones where you kind of got to know a bunch of little stuff. But those are the things that I tend to focus on. Like, I know the questions they like to ask about disability. I know the questions they like to ask about medical. They tend to focus on HMO a lot. So that chapter has a lot of information, but they don't ask everything that they teach. So when you're in your pre-licensing course and you've got like 30 some pages worth of material, you have to remember that, like, looking at this breakdown here for the state of Arizona, 30 pages, but only 6% of your exam will come from those 30 pages. They can't possibly ask you everything. There's only so much they can ask you. There's only so many questions they have available to ask you about. And those are the things that I will talk about, because I've had 5 years experience teaching this stuff and taking the exams myself to know what actually shows up. And that's what I teach on, is what actually shows up. So there may be times where you come to me with a question, and this is just for anybody, and you're like, oh, I don't understand this, and oh my gosh, and blah, blah. I'm like, well, you don't need to understand it. It's not important. I promise you can ignore it. It's not something you're going to have to see. I know you may have had practice questions on it, and they talk about it in your course, but that doesn't mean you actually need to know it. That doesn't mean it's actually going to show up on your test. Okay. They can't possibly ask you everything that's inside your pre-licensing course. There's only so many questions available for each section. So I will hit, so even though this is, you know, pretty scattered in terms of what it is that you need to know for the state of Arizona, and also speaking to Anthony with Oregon, I will hit on the things that you're likely to see that 6% come from. So if you focus on what I tell you and don't be bogged down by the 30 plus pages inside of every chapter, you'll be doing okay. Do you have any questions for me, Mary? Okay, and then we had Travis and I missed the other name, join us. What state are you guys in? Right now, we're just kind of quickly reviewing everyone's state so they know what is important for your exam. Shakira and Travis, you guys can either put it in the chat box or unmute. Pennsylvania. And are you doing, we just went over Florida. Are you doing life and health in Pennsylvania, or just life in Pennsylvania? Just life. Okay. So this is your breakdown for the Pennsylvania life insurance exam. You only need 70% out of 100 questions. That means 70 questions correct. These are the breakdowns of where the questions are going to come from. General insurance is 10%. We are not going to be talking about general insurance because not everybody has general insurance, but I have the YouTube videos, the general insurance memorization audio on YouTube, which covers all the major stuff that you'll see. And if you have my silver package, it also includes a general insurance video that you can watch, but we won't be covering that in this boot camp. This boot camp is going to focus on life insurance basics. That's what we're about to do this morning. Then life insurance policies will be our next class that we are doing, and it will also include annuities, which is 12%. And then this afternoon, we're also doing life provisions, which is 22%. So you want to super focus on this. I mean, all these are all your big heavy hitters, 20, 17, 22, 12, that was 40, 50, 60. I think you can almost pass the exam with just these chapters alone. So everything we're learning today is super on point to what it is that you need to know in Pennsylvania. You have 5% for taxes. You can honestly just ignore that chapter. It's complex. It's a lot of information that can be difficult to understand. So you don't even need to know it at all. That's the IRAs, the Roth IRAs, the 401ks, retirements, the SEPs. You don't need to know any of that. It's only 5%. Then you do have insurance regulations, which is 14%. We are not covering that in the Life Bootcamp, but if you have my Silver Class series, there is a insurance regulations video that you can watch, and it won't give you Pennsylvania specific numbers, but it will tell you what numbers are important for you to know. So whatever pre-licensing course you have, whether you have Excel, Kaplan, 80 Banker, whatever, it should have a section specifically on insurance regulations and state law. Use that text while watching my video to grab the numbers that are important for you. And you do want to, you don't need to worry. Like if you do really, really well in these big ones here, you don't need to be super good at insurance regulations, but you probably at least want to be able to get half of the points there. So that is the Pennsylvania life exemption.
Lisa, I got a quick question. I'm sorry.
Yes,
So
go
with
ahead.
the insurance regulations, would it be the same as the PNC insurance regulations? Okay, great. So yeah, okay.
Yes. That's what's so cool is if you're taking multiple state exams and even general insurance. So general insurance is the same too. So if you've already done the PNC general and the PNC insurance regulation, same. So that's awesome. Okay. And then Florida, Travis, are you doing Florida Life and Health or just Life?
Life and Health.
Life and Health. Okay. So we didn't cover that one. So let me do that one because we did just Life.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Okay. So you're doing, okay. So you have 165, only 150 are scored. What that means is when you take the test, you're going to have to answer 165, but only 150 will actually count for you, against you, whatever. You won't know which 15 don't matter. So you're just going to have to treat them all like a test question.
Okay.
But know that you have basically 15 questions that you can completely get wrong and it doesn't impact you in any way, but you won't know that. But what you want to realize is you only need 70% of 150. You don't need 70% of 165. So you only need 105 questions correct. So out of the 165 you're taking, basically 60 of them can be wrong. All right. Now for your breakdown, we're going to be covering, so you have, let's see, you've got the big one, life provisions, which we're covering this afternoon, health provisions, which we're covering tomorrow. What's really cool about life provisions and health provisions is that they're going to overlap. There's going to be a lot of the same entire contract, grace period, free look period, same. So as you're studying life provisions, you're also going to be learning health provisions. So that there, what is that? 26% of your exam, boom, handled. Then your next biggest looks like state law. Now, have you taken the property casualty exam before, or is this your first test?
This is my first test.
Okay, so I'm not covering state law in this boot camp, but if you have my silver video package,
I do.
Perfect. It has a state regulations class in it. So use that to tell you, because I'm not going to give you Florida specific numbers because every state has different numbers, but I will tell you, focus on these numbers. Know your CE hours, know how long your license is good for, know the job of the commissioner. If you follow along with that video, it will give you the guidance to what numbers to focus on. Now, these other two chapters, which are 10%, you have Florida, which is pertinent to life, and Florida, which is pertinent to health. These chapters are basically going to be the provisions. They're just emphasizing them for Florida state law. So when you learn the life provisions at 12% and the health provisions at 14%, you're learning these two chapters as well. So that's fabulous, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you don't need to learn a whole lot more after that. Now, then you've got, let's see, you've got completing the app. We're doing that this morning. That's what we're going to start with.
Yes.
Then you've got types of life. Since it's and types of life is going to be really big. Term life, whole life, universal life, variable life, adjustable life, whatever. Focus on term versus whole because it's only 8%. And I promise they love term and whole more than any other type of life. So since it's only 8%, those would be the two to focus on.
Okay.
With retirement, you don't need to focus really on this chapter. It can be a little complex to understand it since it's only 5%. If you know anything about IRAs or 401ks, if you have a job and you had a 401k, the knowledge you have on that should be enough to get you a couple of questions. You don't need to worry about this chapter because it can be just too much information, lots of different numbers, like rules, like 50, if you get the money before 59 and a half, and then what if you're 70 and a half? Like, it's just like, blah, you don't need that.
Okay.
Field underwriting procedures at 6% is actually going to be exactly the same as completing the application. So as you're learning completing the application, you're learning field underwriting. This is basically the life side and this is the health side, but they are same. So
Understood.
everything that we're learning this morning is going to help you for field underwriting procedures as well, which is why I didn't even include it in tomorrow's boot camp, because we'll be talking about it today. But
Yes.
anyone who does have health only, I'll get them the underwriting video. But anyway, then you have types of health insurance policies. This is going to, for you, this is a very loaded chapter. They're going to be talking about medical. They're going to be talking about disability. They're going to be talking about long-term care. All the possible policies are going to be crammed into this one chapter. And it's only 9%. So we're talking like hundreds of pages and it's only 9%. So you don't need to be super, this is one of the chapters where you might only get like half the points in, and that's okay. Focus heavily on what I'm going to be covering tomorrow: HMOs, PPOs, and disability. And if you know those three things, you'll get enough points from the types of health. And then, like we said, health provisions, we're going to be covering that. It goes along with life provisions, and we'll be covering that tomorrow. Social insurance is Medicare, 2%, not even important. We will have that included in the life boot camp or in the health boot camp tomorrow. In other states, it is bigger, but for Florida, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
And then other concepts just kind of gives you more definitions related to disability and stuff like that. So these chapters don't even really matter for you. So if you hyper focus on provisions, which is both life and health, you've got the state law, you'll get a bunch of points here because it covers provisions, and you know a good amount of completing the app, which is the same as field underwriting. You're going to be in a really good position to be able to pass.
Awesome.
Did you have any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. So that is there any other state specific, like my exam breakdown type of questions that we have? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.